All right. Welcome, everyone, to our second BeKIN Steel meeting. This is a passion project of mine. And so today, I wanted to introduce someone new for us, but I wanted to start with a certain thought in mind. One of the hardest things we deal with often as human beings is expectations. Sure, the expectations of others, but here I'm speaking of our own expectations. In this case, expectations and assumptions are nearly interchangeable. We often expect that because we want a particular outcome or believe that a particular outcome is best, that's what's going to happen for us. We assume that because we've seen this before, it'll go exactly as it did previously. We expect that life will go exactly a particular way. But as we age, as we gain more experiences, we learn that this isn't always the case, and that many times the things that we didn't expect turn out to be our biggest blessings. So if we can, it's good to meet life with an open heart and an open mind, and to do our best to let life unfold as it will. So today we have PJ Davis taking the spear in hand and sharing her journey with us, opening her life up as a guide to the rest of us. So I ask that, as with life, we listen without expectation, with an open mind and an open heart. And thank you, PJ. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you all so much. I am so excited. You probably can see it all over my face, but I have been awaiting this day now. I rushed the holidays and everything trying to get here. So thank you so much. I am going to share my screen. And I also want to going to put this in slideshow mode. But I also want to really quickly just acknowledge three people who are likely on the call. When I start talking about my Grambling State University, I just want to recognize the fact that I have two Grambling Knights who were actually in school with me, and we became friends in college. And it's Tony Milburn and Anita Green. And they both, I'm sure they attend this call regularly. They're active with the group. So I just wanted to make sure folks knew that, even 30 plus year long friendships, have culminated here at IBM and Kyndryl. So I thank them both for being on the call today. I know they're being very supportive. Um, so I'm going to start about me with this infogram that I've put together. So the about me part is at the top. My name is Peronia Elise Davis. My maiden name was Jackson. So as you can imagine, in college, I got Piranha, Purina, Pepperoni. So PJ emerged. PJ emerged in college, and that has kind of stuck as my nickname since that time. So that's why you see me in the Kyndryl directory as PJ Davis. I was born in a very small town. It's Oakdale, Louisiana. For those of you who know about Louisiana, but not so much about Oakdale, it's about maybe 100 and a little few miles from Baton Rouge. And it sits in the middle of the state, about 36 miles south of Alexandria, Louisiana. So those are kind of larger cities you may recognize. I'm the fifth of five children, and so I'm the baby. And I just want you to know that PJ is what you all call me, but literally the baby is what my family calls me. So I went to Oakdale High School because in Oakdale, Louisiana, there was Oakdale Elementary School, Oakdale Junior High School, and Oakdale High School. And so I was at Oakdale High School in the 80s. I was class salutatorian, I was homecoming queen, I was first chair clarinet. So I was really, really busy in high school. And then as I left high school, I went to Grambling State University. I have a BS in computer science. And because I'm such a busybody, I kind of got into Grambling and became Miss Freshman my freshman year and Miss Grambling State my senior year. And I'm also a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So for those AKs out there, we're here. And then my hobbies. I just wanted to share a little bit about my hobbies. My primary hobby is playing the piano. I used to play for my church at home, and I just play all kinds of music. I actually went to college majoring in music with concentration on piano. But then, in the early 80s, IBM just seemed like a more lucrative opportunity. So computer science became my major. I am authoring a book. And if you all would like your names changed, just send me a quick Teams so that the names will be changed in the book. And I also love doing community service, either with the sorority or with Jack and Jill of America or any other organizations, and just plain anytime there's an opportunity. So just quickly, this next section is about my love, my two cherubs, and my dog. So Rodney, I am married to my college sweetheart. I met him my sophomore year in college. He's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi sorority, Fraternity Incorporated. And we have a daughter, Taylor, who's 24. We've got a son, Corey, who's 21. And we've got a little son, Chase, who's 9. So Taylor is a recent graduate of Howard University. I guess maybe it was legacy. I'm not really sure, but she was Miss HU School of Business and she became Miss Howard University in 2020. She was also Miss Maryland's second runner-up, and now she is employed by the NFL, the corporate office that's out in Inglewood, California. And then Corey is at Tyler Junior College in Tyler, Texas. He loves golf, he loves baseball, he loves scootering and extreme sports. And then Chase, who is the 9-year-old peekapoo, he is in my lap every meeting. And so you guys see him here, because if he's not in my lap, he's yapping to be in my lap. So he just sits here every call. And then one thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, our house is divided when it comes to sports, football. We're big football people. I'm the Saints fan. My husband is the Cowboys fan. So you can imagine how much fun we have during NFL football season. And I just mentioned that my favorite family vacation so far is at Martha's Vineyard. And I think we're planning to go there again next summer. I won't read the bottom, but I developed superpowers. And those superpowers are basically telekinesis, telepathy, and X-ray vision. Because I tend to persuasive in a lot of my negotiations at work. I communicate so that I can be effective with stakeholders and influence outcomes. And X-ray vision is my ability to anticipate risks and proactively provide solutions. But as you can see on the lower right, the most important part of this is that I also love making cocktails, cooking Cajun food, and dancing. So I will assure you I made no cocktails this morning prior to this call. I'm going to just skip now to just a few quick pictures. This is Rodney and me. Our marriage was in 1995. That was on vacation. And then this is a picture of my Miss Grambling year with my Miss Grambling court. And all of us are still friends. We communicate today. And, that's one of the great parts about college to me. You meet your lifelong friends there and people who support you. This is my son, Corey. Corey, again, is 21. Corey loves to golf with Dad. And this is a high school photo and then one of his baseball photos when he was catcher. And this is our daughter, Taylor. This is her first day at her new job. This was in the Miss Maryland pageant. And then this was just a picture that a friend took of them when she was Miss Howard doing some Miss Howard things. And then this is Bentley Chase. I think you've all seen him in person now, but this is the other baby. So I will start the career journey map discussion. And this one, quite frankly, it made me very reflective, as I was putting this together. And you'll notice that I put some personal reflections around some of the points. And so at those times, I plan to just elaborate on maybe some useful and insightful experiences that I've had around those times. And so you'll notice that I am truly exposing myself because I put my high school photo on the left side of this page. And that's at Oakdale High School in Oakdale, Louisiana. And I can tell you a lot of the achievements that I've been blessed to have over the course of the years. Oakdale, honestly, is very small. And when I went to Grambling and became Miss Grambling, there was a giant billboard that my family put as you were coming into Oakdale and as you were leaving out of Oakdale. So you can just imagine how warm and cozy everyone in Oakdale is. So I noticed in Alif's presentation, he had given us some idea of what mom and dad, or mom said rather, as he was going off to college. And so my mom and dad basically were like, go where the money resides. So I had some grand options for college, but I ended up going to Grambling because I had an all expense paid scholarship to Grambling. I also had one to Southern. I made the decision to go to Grambling, but I will tell you, all of the men in my family, my immediate family, my brothers, my dad, they all went to Southern University. All of the women, my sister, my mom, they all went to Grambling State. So I just decided to stay with the tradition. And so I went to Grambling. When I was there, I'm going to start my career conversation with a personal reflection in terms of how I got to IBM. And this is another point in that mentors and managers really matter. So I will say I got through Grambling. I had a 4.0 probably through the whole time. And then one semester, I decided I was going to do anything else but go to class. And so I had horrible grades that semester. I was distraught. My parents were distraught. Everybody was just so, and I decided that was a difficult challenge for me to talk about. I was somewhat embarrassed about it because I knew that my capabilities were far greater than that. I just decided I'm in college and I'm going to have fun. And oh, by the way, I'm smart enough. I'll just go back and take my tests and be great. But in college, my epiphany was professors aren't quite like the people I knew in Oakdale who taught me, who were likely my cousins and people like that. So I waited until probably maybe my senior year, but it was the first semester of my senior year, and there was a career fair on campus, and one of my friends actually was going to the career fair. She was graduating that semester, and I told her, "Oh, I'll go with you." And so I went with her to the career fair, but I was not prepared to talk about the bad semester I had with an interviewer. So I did not take my resume. I didn't do any of that. I just went and was kind of piddling around and picking up information. And so a lady by the name of Belinda Lawson, she's retired from IBM now, but she was there as a recruiter for Grambling. For IBM. And she looked at me because she had a slight lull at her table, and she said, "Hey, are you interviewing?" And I told her, I said, "No, not today. I don't think so." She says, "Well, what's your classification?" And I said, "I'm a senior." So she kind of looked and she said, "Do you already have a job?" I said, "No." And she said, "Okay, well, come here for a second." So I went over, my major was computer science. So she was completely confused after hearing that. And she says, "What's going on? Why aren't you interviewing here today?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, I had a horrible semester. My grades were horrible, and I just don't quite know how to approach that in an interview." So then she said, "Well, why were your grades horrible?" I said, "Because I just didn't go to class. I just did other things. I went to Monroe. I went to Shreveport. I did all kinds of things, having fun with my sorority sisters, my boyfriend, who is now my husband. And so she says, okay, do me a favor. I'm going to be here tomorrow. Get your resume together, get your transcript, and come over. So I did that. The next day, I got dressed for an interview. I went there with my resume, my transcript, and she looked at my resume and she says, okay. She looked at the transcript. She says, I already have why you have this bad semester. So let's talk about the rest of your resume. And we talked for almost an hour. I mean, she was an amazing lady. And I think about 2 weeks later, I got a job offer from IBM. And I was so excited. I didn't know what to do. I had other job offers from lots of different companies, but of course, in the beginning of the 80s, IBM was just the big deal. And so I said, I'm just gonna, you know, decline all of these other offers and I'm going to go with IBM. So I did that. So my first setback happened because as soon as I graduated, IBM went on a hiring freeze. And I had declined all of my other opportunities that were comparable to IBM's offer. And so I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Well, I ended up going out to Santa Ana, California, which is where I had family. And I ended up working for a small company called Ingram Micro as a software developer. And about 6 months into that, I got a call from Belinda, and she says, hey, PJ, if you're interested in IBM still, we're off of the freeze, and I held your position, and if you want it, you have it. And I thought, wow. So I, of course, took that opportunity, jumped on a plane. They moved all of my things, and I ended up starting with IBM in January of 91, and working for Belinda Lawson. And it was just an amazing time, an amazing opportunity. And my epiphany at that time was the biggest lesson I think I could have ever learned. Don't give up on yourself. And there are lots of things that we won't do perfectly, even within our jobs here, and it's okay. It's okay to make a wrong move. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to take a wrong career turn, because there are always opportunities to right the ship and to recover from those things and recover greatly. So one of the things that I want to mark here as a mentor moment is that Belinda, the first thing she told me as she was walking me around the building, she said, contribute the max to your 401k. Now, this is so-and-so. And so I caught that as a very important piece of advice. So once I started with IBM as a software engineer, I was in a testing position, and then I started developing software for an order management workflow tool called CRD. It was a common registration driver. I'm dating myself now, but it was in the IBM Information Network in Tampa. I kind of felt a little bit like being in a cube all day, coding and testing, kind of wasn't utilizing what I thought were my best skills. So I'm a people person, and I enjoy communication. I get energy from people. And so I went to my manager and asked about an opportunity to manage one of our projects, and she afforded me that opportunity. So it started a whole different career path for me, because I became eventually an IBM Executive Certified Project Manager, and I was managing a lot of the larger projects or more complex projects that were related to global billing and order management at that time. And I actually also started working on, I got to be a member of the North America Certification Board. So I was also certifying other project managers. And that was an amazing experience for me for about 2 years. So I got married to Rodney in 1995. And Rodney's family, he's got a family of entrepreneurs. He is one. And he basically had gotten on with his family to help start their business. They have a broadcast media business. They have radio stations and things. So he started there in Arkansas, which is where his family's from. And We lived apart for 10 whole years. So we got married in 95, and we did not come together in Dallas, Texas, which is further along my timeline, until 2005. And we just had to make it work because I was working. And at that time, when we first began, there wasn't a whole lot of working from home. And so we made it work. We went back and forth. I had Taylor in 1998, and then I put it here. Corey arrived in 2001, because this is another personal reflection that I just want to share. Corey is our son. We've had Corey since he was 2 days old, but Corey is actually my biological great nephew. And so my niece, he's my niece's child. And so my niece had run into some pretty bad times, and she ended up incarcerated. So we basically, my family decided the kids that she had at the time, we took them all. So as you can imagine, we got on a telephone call and we were like, okay, I just love boys. I'm going to take the boy. We're going to get. So my family was happy to do it. And we've had these children now since they were very small. And Corey, we don't know what we'd be doing without him. As a matter of fact, he's my husband. You'd never know that he was not Corey's biological father, nor that I was not Corey's biological mother, because he's just been our baby. And I mentioned Anita Green on the call earlier, but she's godmother to my children. So I just wanted to share that. But my father passed away shortly thereafter in 2003. And this is something I want to share as well. My father passed away when I was in Tampa. And my manager at that time, like I said, we weren't working from home. And so I went to her. I said, hey, Sandy McDonald was her name. I said, I have a situation and I need your help. I said, I'd like to know what my options are because my mother's trying to take care of my ill father alone. I'm willing to take a leave of absence from my job so that I can go and help my mom with my dad. And so she looked at me and she says, you know what? She goes, you're a project manager. You're doing work globally anyway. Why don't we do this? And she said, we're going to set up an office in your home. I'm going to have someone from Baton Rouge come and set up the office in your mom's home. And we'll get you all set up with your equipment and we'll see how it goes. And I looked at her and thought, wow, she said, listen, you are a strong contributor. We don't want you here worrying about your mom and your dad. She says, so we want you to be where you're going to be comfortable knowing that they're okay and that you can help. And if you can't work because of the circumstances or they get dire, don't work. She says, we'll have a different discussion then. But I'd hate to see you go on an unpaid leave when you have this opportunity to have your office there. So let's talk about it once you get there. I got there, the office was set up. I worked from my mom's home for 2 years until my dad passed away. And I noted at that time that, first of all, managers matter. And second of all, I decided at that moment that although I felt like I was giving IBM already 125%, I decided that that was going to be 225% at that time. And my whole perspective on job, career, the people you work with, and what a company truly can be in your life changed at that moment. And so I went back to Tampa after my dad passed away. I became a first line manager in a function test team. And eventually I moved to Dallas because Rodney and I had an opportunity to move to the same place. So we finally got together in Dallas. It's just where we live now in Allen, Texas. And I also moved to IBM Federal at that time. So the federal division of IBM, as you all likely know, is just a separate division, Division 16. I started working there, and my first order of business was to stand up a service area. Had never done it before. However, it seemed very similar to some of the projects that I'd managed and some of the deliverables that we'd done as a team. And so I worked on that and eventually met my first executive sponsor. And I'm going to share in a few minutes why executive sponsors are different from mentors and what responsibilities you can expect from a sponsor versus a mentor. Both are valuable. So I want to encourage everyone, if you don't have one or the other, please, please, please reach out. I'm perfect. I'm happy with trying to help establish a relationship. I'm sure there are others on the BeKIN team and leadership team who will be happy to help you do that as well. But you have to have one, and eventually a sponsor is necessary, especially when you're trying to navigate career development and other opportunities within the company. So the exec sponsor I met, his name's Andrew Fairbanks. He's still at IBM. He was the general manager of Federal at that time. And I will tell you, I stood up the service area with another executive, and then I became second line manager as somewhat of a reward, I think, for standing up the service area. And then, needless to say, at this point, my mom was just making everybody in Oakdale, Louisiana, sick of me. I just want you to know that. I had to throw it in because I always had to check in with my mom. And we would just, pray all the time and talk about how dad would be so proud of me and all. But everybody in Oakdale, if I ran across someone, they were like, yes, we know. So what eventually the service area merged, which was somewhat of a setback, but it was an opportunity as well. And I'm going to do a personal reflection here to just give you a little more insight on how valuable an executive sponsor is. So Andrew, as I mentioned, was general manager of Federal by the time I left Federal, but in this moment, he was actually in a role that was over the service lines. And so I moved to be the second line manager of the application development service line. And then when the service areas merged, it was almost like there was an opportunity for me to go several places. And they were trying to determine the new org structure, and they were doing it based on skills. And so as a project and program manager, the project and program management leader thought that I rightfully belonged in that area. It was actually my title at the time, my job role. And so there was that conversation. And then I, was a second line manager. So they were looking to put the managers of this particular service line in one area. And then there was my executive sponsor, who was then being promoted to general manager. And essentially, the conversation was happening on the phone. And it was mostly executives on the call. I was not present on the call, but this conversation was happening about where to move leaders in the business. And I started to get a whole bunch of text messages. People were like, PJ, are you there? And I'm like, yeah. She said, you'll never believe what happened in this call. So eventually, when the call ended, one of the friends who was an executive on the call called me. She said, PJ, I have to tell you what happened in this call. And I was like, what went on? I got so many text messages. I thought something was wrong. And she says, no. She says, listen, she goes, we were in this call and Andrew was saying basically that you were going to go, with him in his general manager role and that he had an opportunity for you there. She said, and then this whole big discussion ensued because the other folks who had me slotted in their areas were thinking that well, if we do that for one, we're going to have to do that for all. She rightfully is a project manager, program manager. She belongs here or she belongs there. And my friend told me that Andrew just let the whole conversation happen over the course of 10 minutes or so. And she said, and after that, his boss asked him, well, Andrew, you're hearing the conversation. Do you have some feedback? And she said in the middle of the call, just he was quiet. And then all of a sudden he told them, yeah, I hear it and I understand it. He says, but if I'm going to go to the general manager role, I'm not doing it unless she goes with me. And she said everyone was just stunned. And she said that his manager said, Andrew, like, am I hearing you correctly? And he says, yes, I'm not going to do it unless she goes with me. He said, because she's been very instrumental to helping me stand up every service area, every business area I've taken on as I've risen up the ladder. And so it meant, and you can imagine, and just amazing time for me in my career, because I realized that there was someone who actually was putting an opportunity for career advancement ahead of his own career advancement for me. And I'd never experienced it. Based on feedback I had, it was a little unique. But I took it to mean that this is someone, that I can trust. This is someone I can go to if I've got, critical issues that I need to resolve, brainstorm, provide insight. So it's a mentor, but it's a step above, because executive sponsors tend to have authority, and they tend to have they tend to have voices in the business, so that if you need their assistance, you get positive results out of their assistance. So I'm hoping that, I at least helped a little bit with where the executive sponsor comes in and some of the things that they actually can do for you as you advance your career or as you need personal help or things like that. And I will share with you that when my husband and I go to DC now, we always visit him and his wife. They always invite us over for dinner. He is still sending me opportunities. Even before I came over to Kyndryl, he sent me an opportunity after he learned I retired from IBM. To work in Louisiana as the Red Cross director for New Orleans. And it was just amazing that we still have that relationship and he's still looking after me, for lack of a better word. After that, I moved to HR, which, yay, that's actually where I had wanted to be forever. It was just it was a path to take to get to HR, and I leveraged a lot of my operations management experience that I'd gotten in federal to be qualified to move over to HR, and a lot of the program management experience. So I became a PMO leader in the talent management area. And then my manager got promoted, who actually was my second executive sponsor. Her name's Carla Grant Pickens. Many of you may know her. She is currently the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for IBM. But I worked for her when she was a global HR leader, a manager for the global HR leaders. And so I moved to an HR leader role under her. She got promoted, and so I had a different manager in that role. And then after 30 years, I decided to retire from IBM. So interestingly enough, the position at Kyndryl, I was not a part of GTS. So I didn't move, with the other teams that moved over to Kyndryl and retired and such, or if they were eligible to retire and such. What happened was that I literally decided I was going to retire from IBM, period. And I was going on to do other things. But yet again, my executive sponsor, Carla, called me up and she said, hey, Karima is interviewing people for the Global Equal Opportunity Compliance Leader role. And I know that was something you were interested in when you were at IBM. She said, so, if you're really done working and you're retired and moved on, great. If not, she said, I can give Karima a call, let her know you're going to apply or whatever. I did apply. And I think she actually sent a couple of, referrals over to Karima for that position. But I interviewed, and here I am. And so it's been my dream job. My manager seems like family. I mean, she's just an amazing manager. And again, managers matter. She actually is the chief diversity and inclusion officer for Kyndryl. And so that's to whom I report in the global equal opportunity compliance leader role. So I mentioned these things because I wanted you to have some key takeaways. Managers matter. So when you get good managers, and one of the ways to get good managers is to do a good job for your manager. You do a good job, you demonstrate your capabilities, you show your superpowers, and managers take notice because they are looking for people who not only will be successful on their teams, but will help them to be successful managing the team. So if you are exerting, your best and putting your best foot forward, I can assure you that good managers will notice. And they do matter when it comes to your acceleration throughout the company. Mentors and executive sponsors matter. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to have one and or both. And then contribute the max to your 401k. Also know your worth. That's important. And I'll just tell you one experience I had. I had gotten a promotion, and I didn't feel as though the amount of money that came along with my promotion was acceptable. And I didn't feel that way because I had done some research to determine essentially with my role, my responsibilities, my length of service, all of the things that, can go into determining those things, my performance ratings, things like that. It just didn't seem reasonable. So I went to my manager after I'd collected a lot of comparative information. And I explained why I thought the amount of money that I received was it wasn't commensurate with what I thought I was worth. And after a brief conversation, we negotiated another amount that was not only acceptable, but far exceeded what I thought was acceptable. So one of the things I mentioned that for is to let you know that it is okay, to go back to your manager and say, hey, this rating that I got, I don't necessarily agree with it. And let's have a conversation about, why we had a disconnect on this particular rating. Or it's fine for you to go and say, I feel like I can take on some additional responsibilities. I think I'm not utilizing my best skills, or I feel like I'm not being utilized to my capacity. So it's okay to have those conversations. Checkpoint, when you do your checkpoints, one of the things I've learned over the years is make sure that you are proactive about your performance ratings, your discussions with your managers on performance. I usually set up a quarterly call myself. So whether or not, my managers are planning to send out a quarterly checkpoint or whatever, I usually set it up myself and send it. And I make sure that I prepare, topics for those meetings so that we can cover the things that are important to me in terms of my progress, my performance. Anywhere we may have a disconnect, we approach it and talk about it head on. And that's the best advice I can give you is don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Don't be afraid to take risks. those that are measured risks, but don't be afraid to take those measured risks if it's something you believe in or something that you think you deserve, and then value yourself. Be confident, because you wouldn't be here, if you weren't a strong contributor or if Kyndryl did not need you to be here. So, you've got this. This is what we do. It's excellence is what we do. And so I put my mom and my dad here. Both are deceased now, but my mom and dad used to tell me all the time, even as a little girl, if a task you have begun, never leave it till it's done. Be the labor great or small, do it well or not at all. And I took that with me my whole lifetime. And so I just encourage you to do the same. Reach your goals, define your goals, and reach those goals, and don't stop until you feel as though you've done so. I think that completes my presentation, Curtis. Thank you so much.
Thank you, PJ, so much. This is a dream I didn't know I had until I landed here at Kyndryl. The stories that have been shared so far, the idea of Beacon Steel, of being able to learn from people that have gone so much further ahead. I've spent a lot of time sort of wandering through the corporate forest alone as some wild man, just kind of like, I'm just going to do stuff. But to suddenly find trails where someone's gone ahead and blazed the trail for me, it changes everything about how I do my professional journey. I'm deeply grateful for it. If anyone has questions that you want to throw out, now's the time. While we have PJ here with us.
PJ, how did you make the transition from operations to HR? What training did you take, or what skills did you need to acquire to make that shift if someone was looking to go from, say, technical or operations to HR?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the operations leader role that I had in Federal, I worked so closely with the HR leader for Federal in that role until I personally, and I'll say this, but I personally took on a lot of the, I won't say responsibilities of the HR leader, but we worked so closely until I soaked up the knowledge, to be honest. And I did have some opportunities to assist her in a way that we kind of blended the two roles, if that makes sense. But I think that making that transition had to do with two things. Again, my sponsor, because we knew that that was where I wanted to go in my career from day one. So that was one thing that helped, because he was giving guidance and talking with the HR leaders to let them know, if you have entry-level positions in HR, this is someone who's had this in her development plan for years, and et cetera. But I think from a technical to an operations to HR, it's really a matter of just soaking up ancillary knowledge. When you have your CV and do your resume, it's important, yes, to put the major things that you do in your job and your responsibilities there, but it is also as important to mention ancillary skills, because you never know when something like that, will aid in a way that you didn't expect. So I think some of it was just being proactive about getting a knowledge of HR, what my HR leader was doing to support me as an operational manager, and then leveraging, my sponsor to help create an opportunity, or not so much create, but to help open the door for an opportunity.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna let somebody else go, because I can ask PJ questions all day. So.
PJ, you should definitely read comments later if you have not had an opportunity to.
Oh, yes.
Lots of positive feedback, as always.
Oh, yes, I see it. That's amazing. I will say this. One of the things that I mentioned it in the presentation, but one of the things I also want you to know, sometimes as African American leaders, we tend to, and this, in my opinion, has to do with our history and our ancestors and just the way we operate in our community. But we have broad shoulders, and sometimes we expect that we have to carry all the weight of the world on our shoulders. Um, it is important, and I mentioned this because I was at IBM 29 years before I took a break. Ridiculous.
Wow.
Um, and when I say a break, needless to say, we had vacation and all that, but I just mean going to my doctor and saying, I think I'm burned out. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I feel anxious all the time. I need a break. And my doctor did some testing, whatever, agreed. We filled out the form. I sent it back to the corporate health and safety team. And I was gone for 3 months from October through December and started fresh again that next January. I've got to tell you, I don't know why in my career I was so reluctant to do that, because I felt like if I'm gone, then they'll put somebody there to do my job, and then they won't, I'm not so valued anymore. Or I felt like, well, if I come back and they've got a resource action, I'll be the one, that they'll want to let go because I was gone, and these types of things. Forget those things, because your mental health matters so much, and especially in this day and time. I mean, we are encountering as a community things that no one would have ever imagined that we're encountering as a community, and it's draining. It's draining, and we're emotional a lot of times, and we can't be emotional, at work, or we feel like we can't be emotional at work. It's okay, because now's the time. I mean, we have to make sure that Kyndryl understands if I'm not healthy, I can't perform. And that means physically and mentally. And so I encourage anyone, who feels like I need a break, to take the break. And believe me, I learned in my own experience that you need the break. So take the break. That's just, something I wanted to share. I didn't do it in the presentation, but I wanted to share that because it is so important. And I know, being a member of this community, that we just don't do it. We don't do it as often or as readily as members of other communities. And
Yeah.
I just encourage you, to think about that.
EJ, I just want to piggyback on that. My daughter is in college, and it was like the weight on her shoulder of everything that was going on. And she is going to a predominantly white university. And she had a lot, but she had enough in her to say in her junior year that summer, I'm going to take a break from everything. And so for me and my husband to, like, okay, oh, well, and we just took the step back and said, we understand, go ahead and take the break. So I really connect with that, because that's how I was operating. That's how me and my husband have operated, just like that.
That's right. And it's important for your children. It's important for you. So I appreciate your mentioning that. And our kids went through COVID, that time, when it really was so disruptive, to their lives, especially those that were graduating from high school or graduating from college or entering college or having major milestones during that time that they missed and they were looking forward to. So I just, like I said, I can't stress enough, and to extend that, you did right to do that to your children and anyone else that you can encourage or have, authority to encourage. It is so important. So, so, so important.
PJ, Lethuli Butler here. Some of my friends call me LB, so I appreciate the initials. I heard in your conversation you mentioned two executive sponsors, one being a male, one being a female. I'm wondering if maybe you could dig a little deeper in that. I've heard at times there's value in not only having male or female sponsors as a man or a woman, but there's also value in having not all African American sponsors. Caucasian sponsors, female sponsors when you're a man, things of that nature. If you could maybe speak to that and expound on that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, no, that's a great question because so the first executive sponsor I spoke about, Andrew Fairbanks, is a Caucasian male. And the second sponsor I talked about, Carla Grant Pickens, is an African-American female. And the other person I spoke about who was a mentor, Belinda Lawson, my first manager, she was an African-American female. And so I will say this. First of all, LB makes an important point because you do want to have diversity in those roles. And gender diversity, racial, ethnicity diversity, you want to have all of that in those roles. And I will say it this way, and I'm being as transparent as I can be on this call, and I don't mind it one bit. There are still, unfortunately, and we fight it every day. I'm in the DE&I space. So we're creating programs every day. We're doing this every day to help reduce systemic bias in our system. Other things that could cause, unknowingly or knowingly, a suppression, in how we advance and how we do things within the company. So I strongly encourage a diversity mix when it comes to your sponsors and your mentors, because you get to have different perspectives on the business. You get to have different perspectives on networks, which is very important. And you tend to have a voice if you're a male and you have a female, or if you're Black and you have a white, you tend to have a voice because they're trying to learn from you just like you're trying to learn from them. That's one reason they exist. They take on the roles as executive sponsors because they want to be able, to have a broader reach and understand different communities and what we're going through and what it takes, to help us advance, especially within a system that doesn't always respect us. So I encourage it. Everybody, if you're looking for mentors and such, it's my experience where I started with a mentor who was like me so that I could explain clearly what I wanted, what I needed, and could do it in language that I was comfortable with. And she understood it right away. I didn't have to, sugarcoat it, didn't have to, nothing. I could tell her exactly, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. How do I do it? And she helped me to establish the relationships with the other diverse sponsors that I had.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, this is great. Any other questions? I love it.
Yeah, I have a question, another one, since no one else is speaking up yet. How did you make that decision to unretire? So many of us, we get to the point where we think we're going to stop. And then what was that process in your mind about unretiring and coming to this brand new company that, you weren't placed here, you chose to come here?
Yes, so that's great. People are asking me that quite a bit now that they knew here's the deal. I actually decided to retire because I'd been there 30 years. It seemed like, it was just time to move on to something new anyway. However, my husband isn't retired. So, my vision of traveling and doing all these wonderful things, when I retire, either I was going to do it by myself or or I should go find something else to do. And I will tell you, the unretiring, that was a key part of my, mentality in terms of making the decision. But the other part of it was truly the role. I think if it had not been the role that I have been seeking forever, I probably would have maybe given it a little more thought but this role as global equal opportunity compliance leader for Kyndryl is amazing. And I will tell you, the one thing that drew me to it, being in corporate, you always know you're making a difference somewhere. I mean, if it's with the products we're delivering, if it's the services we're eventually making our footprint and individually contributing to that. In this role, I get to make sure, and again, I'm just speaking transparently, I get to make sure that the people who are underrepresented are okay. And that means the world to me, because in this role, people are listening to me and they're listening to our experiences. Bobby Alexander is also on the call. She's in my group. We both work for Karima, and Bobby is instrumental in setting up the KINs and doing things. And I've got to tell you, we have a voice. And this is one of the first jobs that I really feel as though I've got a voice and people are listening to it. And I can go to the Kyndryl website and I see posts and things that I've created there, like our equal opportunity statement. If you go out on the website, it's there, and I was instrumental in developing it and putting it there. So you can see the fruit of your labor, and you also can see how it benefits underrepresented groups. So I think a lot of it was the role, to be honest. Other than that, I may have just stayed so I could wear pearls in my pajamas all day.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're coming to the bottom of the hour, and I know folks have other meetings to get to. PJ, thank you again. This was wonderful.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This will probably be the last, not probably, this will be the last BeKIN Steel meeting for this year. We have another episode of The Common Thread that'll hopefully land before Christmas. If you haven't watched Malika's yet, Malika Caldwell, hers is awesome. And next year, I know who my person is to kick us off in the new year for The Common Thread. And I will line up who we have next for our first BeKIN Steel meeting for the beginning of the year. And hopefully, as we go along, we're able to accelerate to have maybe 2 of these a year, because we have a lot of amazing people here, and every person that speaks, man, there's so many gems in their journey. Like when I say we have good people, they're good teachers, right? That when you live a full life, a remarkable life, there's a lot that just in sharing that story is giving back. So thank you so much, PJ, Alif. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And we'll do this again soon. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
All right,
Thanks,
all right,
Graham
thank you.
fam.
Yay, Graham fam.
Got it. You got it.
PJ, this was awesome. This was truly wonderful, man.